Wild Precious Life is brought to you by Prairie Lights Books, Iowa City's premier indie bookstore since 1978. Perhaps the strength of our reputation lies in the reading series of local, national, and international writers who have read their works, which were broadcast live and was the only regular literary series of its kind. All of this could not have been possible without a loyal customer base and a dedicated staff. Learn more or shop online at prairielights.com. And we're brought to you by Green Apple Books in San Francisco, connecting curious readers to great books since 1967. Browsing at Green Apple is a unique experience, from our handmade signs and book recommendations to the many nooks and crannies. You can both get lost in here and find serendipity. Our friendly, well-read employees also stand ready to help you in any way. For your next great read, stop by or go to greenapplebooks.com. I spoke with today's guest a few weeks ago, and at the time my mom was in assisted living, and this week we're moving Mom into a memory care unit. And this is difficult to say, and it's been difficult to live inside of, because while my mom and I have had our differences over the years, I guess I'd lived naively within the hope that we'd eventually have some Hallmark movie-worthy heart-to-heart. And then she'd say, "I'm sorry for the ways I hurt you." And I'd say, "I'm sorry for the ways I let you down." And she'd apologize for judging my parenting so harshly, and I'd forgive her for behaving so badly as my father was dying. Neither of us was at our best then. And we'd move into the warm, fuzzy part of the final years of her life, and maybe I'd wash her hair or read Proust to her out loud, and most of all, we'd tie a bow around what was often a fraught but still love-filled mother-daughter relationship. But that isn't what's happening. Instead, my mom's mind is struggling to keep up with reality. This is not her, it's her illness. But it also looks and dresses and talks like her. So when I visit Mom in assisted living and she says, "Where have you been? Why did you leave me here to die?" On my better days, I can translate that language. What she's really saying is, "I miss you. I want to see you more. I love you." But she doesn't remember that I was here on Monday on hands and knees, scrubbing urine from her bathroom floor, or on Tuesday that I drove her to the dentist, or on Thursday how I came back down to meet with the staff about how they found Mom outside again, barefoot and half naked in the cold, and how when she asked her what was going on, she said, "I'm trying to make my children feel guilty for leaving me here to die." And it feels terrible for all of us. I know my mom's forgotten, for instance, that she toured the senior apartments and that she chose the community where she lives now. I didn't park her there. But none of that matters because she feels abandoned and forgotten. And this week I am signing papers to move her somewhere else, somewhere that she is not choosing, somewhere I'm hopeful Mom will feel safe and cared for during this difficult time when fact and fiction swirl together in her brain, during this difficult time when I have to face the fact that my mom will never be safe to live alone again. At some point, if we're really lucky, the roles of children and parents reverse. We grow up as they grow old. We become caretakers, and while it may indeed be lucky, it sure doesn't feel like it most days. It feels hard, and like you're trying really, really hard and still doing everything completely wrong. I guess that's why I've found the new book by today's guest such a comfort. The characters in Ann Packer's Some Bright Nowhere are muddling through end-of-life care, and it's messy and complicated and beautiful and really hard, and Ann is here to talk about it. Ann Packer is the author of 6 works of fiction, including the best-selling novels The Children's Crusade and The Dive from Clausen's Pier, which received the Kate Chopin Literary Award among many other prizes and honors. Her short fiction has appeared in The New Yorker and in the O. Henry Prize Stories anthologies, and her novels have been published around the world. She divides her time among New York, the Bay Area, and Maine. Ann Packer, welcome to Wild Precious Life.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So I read so many books because I have to. I'm reading them for a class, or I get an arc and I have to preview it, or someone has pitched me, or somebody's friend who's a friend of a friend. I read so many books because I have to, and some live up to their hype and many don't. But I read your latest novel, Some Bright Nowhere, entirely because I wanted to. And even though it broke me open sometimes, and lady, we have to talk about that. I rarely get to read a book just because I want to, outside of maybe, Christmas Day. So thank you for the great gift of your work.
Oh, well, thank you. That's so flattering. And, it's just, you write it in isolation and then it's this big production to get it out into the world. But it's not until you actually talk to readers that you really feel like the process has, reached not completion, but like the necessary next step, which is, people reading it. So I'm so excited to get to talk to people who have read it. And this is really fun.
Yeah, well, it's going to be super fun because we're going to talk about death and illness and grief. So everyone waiting, hold on to your hats. Annmarie's hitting her usual themes. But, so many stories of illness start at the beginning with the diagnosis and the sadness and, oh, what will we do? But your novel, I'm not giving anything away here. Your novel starts at the end. We meet Claire and Elliot on Claire's last day with her oncologist. They've decided to stop treatment. What made you begin the story there?
I knew I wanted to write about a woman at the end of her life, and I assume we're going to get deeply enough into the plot that I am not giving anything away. It's about a woman who's dying, who knows she's dying, who's had cancer for a long time, and who's been taken care of by her loving husband. But she decides she wants someone else with her for her final days and her death. She wants her closest women friends to replace her husband and take care of her. And that was always the premise. It was a situation I heard about sort of glancingly almost 20 years ago, like this happened. And I was sort of like, what? And it stayed with me and ended up, fueling this novel. So it was never going to be about anything but me. So that was the logical place to start. And in fact, ending on the final appointment with the oncologist as treatment is ending, and it's sort of like that moment of we're accepting that there's nothing more to do. That felt like the opening of that final chapter that I wanted to look at.
Yes. Well, you bring up this impossible situation, and I'm going to do my best not to spoil the end. We'll tiptoe around some of what's coming, but the beginning of the book is fair game. So we encounter Elliot and Claire, this long married couple in New Haven, Connecticut, and they have decided to stop treatment. And soon after, Claire requests what you've just mentioned, right? Hey, hun, I know you've been caring for me, but down the stretch, I'd like you to leave. I'd like you to not be here. And Elliot, I'm going to bring in Holly and Michelle, my besties, and they're going to hang with me and they're going to care for me. And you can live in the guest bedroom at Holly's house. And I have been a caregiver when my husband, his father passed away, when my dad passed away, when my sister and I were taking care of my dad. This was a very familiar landscape to me. And I had to really sit with this idea that you're telling me that Elliot, the one who has been there, is not going to take care of his wife at her request. And he keeps going on about, well, it's her dying wish, it's her dying wish, it's her dying wish. But did the premise of your book make you uncomfortable?
very incredibly. I mean, that's why I wrote it. I heard about this situation, this couple, and oh yeah, the husband was just not up to it. So, her two best friends moved in. And I was like, what? What about the husband? I mean, what about his experience of this? Made me very uncomfortable. And to tell you the truth, when I first started work on the book, I thought I was going to get into all the different points of view. And I actually wrote, 30 pages of it where I started in the mind of the dying woman. And I did, I don't know, 10 pages from her point of view. And then I moved into her friend's point of view. And I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sort of rotate among intimate points of view in this novel, starting with the woman with the diagnosis and ending with her husband. And I just couldn't get into it. I could not make myself want to fully inhabit these women before I got to the man. I knew that writing from the husband's point of view would be where the real meat of the story was. And the rest is it's a novel about women taking care of each other and women's friendship. And I've already written that book. I mean, a version of that book. I wrote a novel about, a close friendship between women. And I wanted to do something different. And I set it aside. But he kept nagging at me. And finally I was like, why not just get to that part that's going to be the challenging, complicated, sort of potentially devastating portion of this longer novel I've been envisioning, and just focus on that and make it short and tense.
Eliot is a quintessential narrator as well. So for folks who have not yet had the honor of reading this book, Eliot is the husband. He's been the one caring for Claire, and he's the one who's asked to exit stage left. And he's such a narrator's narrator, right? Because he's the guy in the corner of the room who people aren't paying attention to, or he's the guy who brings rolls to the table that he's baked himself, and they're in a basket, but he's unobtrusive about it. He's a dad, he's getting out the grill, like just Eliot. He's an onlooker. And so I loved journeying with him as our narrator. I think it would have been interesting to be in the minds of the women, of course, but he has so much love for Claire that he's even willing to do for her what he doesn't want. He wants to be with her down the stretch, and we'll get to some of the turns that this takes, but at least in the beginning when she says, I don't want you to be here, I want to be with my girlfriends, even though that's not what he wants, even though he's not even sure that will be medically better for her, he goes along with it. He moves out. He moves to the guest room at a neighbor's house, and he just, in the beginning, comes over sporadically with muffins and scones and to visit his wife at his house. But then they kind of let him know that they want to see him less, or that his wife wants to see him less, and he's incredibly hurt. I was hurt for him because, on his behalf, because we sort of romanticize folks who are dying, but you're not always your best self as you're exiting this world. And Claire, however wonderful a hostess she was when she was well, is not always her best self when cancer is invading her very bones. And she is hurtful to him, and he is wounded by this, but they do it anyway.
Right. And if I can just interject, another way to think about what she does, I mean, yes, it is hurtful to him, but what she's doing is actually being honest about what she wants and what she thinks she needs. And then it's actually Eliot's choice whether to give her the thing that she sort of maybe ill-advisedly told him was what was in her heart. So in some ways, Claire saying, gosh, I like this. And then Eliot, rather than just brushing it off, really hearing her and thinking about what it means that this is your dying wish. And that motif comes up over and over. Sort of what is the meaning of someone's last request. What does it mean to have the opportunity to give your beloved the final thing they're asking of you?
Yeah. You get so many great questions in here. You have a knack, I think, for asking good questions about a situation. I feel very intimately familiar with this situation. And even I was sitting with questions I hadn't thought of before. Elliot mulls over the word caregiver versus caretaker. You know, a caretaker is someone you leave in charge of your mansion when you jet off to Europe, right? The caretaker gets the mail. The caregiver wipes your bottom when you've had a bathroom accident. The caregiver, in some cases, sleeps with a baby monitor or on the floor beside your bed. The caregiver is, giving the care. But then who's caring for the caregiver? Like, when is the caregiver taking any care? When is the caregiver receiving any care? And do they even feel like they're entitled to that? I mean, Elliot is surrounded by people who care about him, but it's very, very difficult for him to receive any kind of care. We ignore caregivers, I think, to our detriment.
Right. And it's finally, over the last, I don't know how long, it feels like several years, the plight of the caregiver, I think, has become more visible and has become something that we talk about. And you're right. It's something that has to be taken care of. You're right. It's caring for the caregiver. And sometimes that's self-care and, finding a way to take a break. I mean, these assisted living places, my mother was recently, well, she died recently, but before that she was in first assisted living and then memory care. And so I had to investigate these places a lot. And there are places that offer what they call respite care, which basically means you can put your dad in a place for a week just so you can recover from the work, which I found kind of astounding. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, my mom is in assisted living now. My dad passed away. It sounds like your mom passed away too, and I'm sorry for that loss. But you're absolutely right with there's the emotional work, right? The emotional work of just caring for this person you love as you see them getting worse and worse, but also just the intellectual work of is this facility a good fit, and what are the boxes we can check, and are you equipped to care for someone with normal pressure hydrocephaly and see them go in and out of dementia that's going to look different on different days, and is that memory care or not, and how many people do you have on staff, and when they have a UTI, do you have to ship that out, and is it 3 days that we have to wait, or can you test on site, or like all of those intellectual questions. And this came up in your book as well. Elliot himself, the husband, is not a doctor, right? He has no medical training. And as a caregiver, you are so often called upon to make complex medical decisions on behalf of the person you love. And you have almost no knowledge. Now, in Elliot's case, we've got Abby, we've got his daughter, who does have medical training. But I mean, in our case, I had oncologists asking which treatment I preferred, and I'm going home and I'm Googling all the words in the medical study so I can try to see which one my dad's methylated or non-methylated tumor would respond best to. And I finally had to ask doctors, I'm like, if it was your dad, what would you do? And why would you do that? But so often caregivers are called upon to make medical choices, as Elliot is on Claire's behalf. Claire falls. Don't even get me started about holiday weekends. Why is it my father had a seizure on Thanksgiving? The only time it seems like you really, really need to get a hold of your doctor, it's 7 p.m. on a Friday evening of the 4th of July weekend, which in the case in your book is totally true. So, how did you navigate the medical situations in this book? Like, are you medically trained? I don't think I know.
Oh my God, no. No, I'm just a hypochondriac.
Oh, that helps.
I'm joking, sort of. I've just always been interested in medicine. And when I hear about somebody's circumstance, I tend to consult the Google. But no, I came at it as a, as a bystander slash close friend slash family member. Um, my mother, didn't die recently, but actually after I finished the book, but she was in care for 5 years. But the hospice, the medical interventions, that's just little bits of research, little bits of Google or consulting doctor friends, like which would be more likely, X or Y. I've been fortunate to have, a number of doctors sort of on speed dial over the years, just friends who are willing to say, no, I think fever would be higher, or we wouldn't worry about that, or whatever. To get, it's always very important for me in my work that things be realistic. And so that's how I sort of would strive to make sort of medically flavored passages seem real.
Yeah. I appreciated that because when Claire takes that tumble over the 4th of July weekend, Elliot is himself trying to decide, how much time would be worth it. Let's say she needs surgery or more radiation, or let's say she needs an intervention. How much time would it be worth it for us to do that? And that he arrives upon this very arbitrary number. He's like, well, if it would get us 6 weeks, maybe we would go through that. And you do, that question it was baffling, but you do play these games with time when you're taking care of someone. And I love that you have Elliot ask these unaskable questions. They're given 3 to 6 months, for instance, is a number that's bandied about, that Claire has 3 to 6 months to live. And so Elliot is a numbers guy. And they're a couple months in at one point. He's like, okay. And then someone says she's got 3 to 6 months to live. He's like, well, she can't have 3 to 6 months to live now because she had 3 to 6 months to live before. And someone else says, well, it's probably weeks to a month. So then he recalibrates weeks to a month. I don't need to get my fall clothes out because he's thinking about time in a way that I think sounds just so uncomfortable. But you really do. You don't want your loved one to suffer, but you are in this terrible kind of limbo when they're not themselves and you're not yourself. And I love that you had him arguing with time. It was so real to me.
Well, thank you. That did feel, I think the phrase, weeks to months, days to weeks, really struck me, when a friend of mine was dying several years ago, and hospice had been called, and we were getting sort of, well, at this point, they think it's weeks to months, days to weeks. I never know what I'm going to carry forward, from life to use it in work. But that was something that I ended up feeling very strongly as I was writing this book, that sort of ticking clock. I mean, I've done a little TV writing, and they're always like, make sure you've got a ticking clock. So the ultimate ticking clock, like, how long is this person going to live?
One of my favorite ticking clocks is the dental floss in Rebecca Mackay's The Great Believers, that one of her characters is using dental floss, and it's this person is ill, and that you just get this idea that if we can just keep the dental floss in the little packet, there's still more the next day, that they'll live, and that when they run out of dental floss, is this the end? And yeah, you absolutely are up against a ticking clock. And in Elliot's case, different hospice folks, right? The Nigerian lady has one forecast, and the other gal who comes to help on the 4th of July has another, and everyone's forecast is different.
How can they know? They can't possibly know. The only thing they can do is draw on previous experiences. And if you work for a hospice organization, you've seen a lot of previous experiences, and someone like this, yeah, probably better.
Yeah.
It could be 4. It could be 3 days. I mean, it's like the weather forecast. What do you mean 60% of rain, chance of rain? Well, it's because when the sky is like this and when the sort of meteorological report of the region is like this, 60% of the time there ends up being rain. But it's not, it's just a guess, it's
Yeah. And something we don't think about is that my dad had terminal brain cancer, so he was given a forecast of time of, months, and what you don't
so
realize is that, oh yeah, do not wish that on anyone. You think it's just going to be like this straight downhill. Okay, he'll be worse today than he was yesterday, but that's not how it goes. Like he's outside feeding the birds, but then the next day he's in bed. But then we're baking a cake, and then we saw the grandchildren, but the next day he's in bed. So it is if you were to graph it over time, yes, it is a downward trajectory. But even within a week, if you were to prognosticate, maybe you're seeing somebody on a great day. Maybe he could use the walker and get to the bathroom himself. And another day, I'm pushing him there in the wheelchair, and another day, we can't even make it there. And so these forecasts do end up being incredibly mercurial because death is it's not a straight line down. It's just you can't graph it as easily as you might like. And Elliot, I love the way Elliot fights against that and also asks other difficult questions like, can I think about moving on? Oh no, I shouldn't ever. Like I've been married for quite some time, and every once in a while, my husband is not terminally ill, but I'm thinking about who could I have been with instead. These are very normal things we think about, but when you're caring for someone who's terminally ill, as Elliot is with Claire, it seems unmentionable that you could ever think about loving another. But the reality is that Elliot is about to be alone for who knows how long. It's completely realistic and reasonable that he should think about that. But I love the way he tiptoes into doing or saying or believing something he shouldn't, and then he pulls himself back. He's got this push-pull with his own heart in that way.
Yeah, he's conflicted. He's working it out in real time. And I think, one of the things that I was thinking about as I wrote this character was that he hasn't been someone who pays attention to his own emotional experience that much. And now he kind of has to. And I wanted it to feel as if he was sort of adopting the habit of that kind of self-observation, as the days to weeks passed, as he got closer, so that kind of the greatest moments of self-awareness happen.
Yeah, he's got a nice arc. One of my favorite throwaway characters in your book was Stuart, Holly's ex-husband, who's been thrice married. He's a great, I don't know, I'd call him like a wise fool sort of character. So in one of the snit moments when Elliot is like, fine, you guys don't want me here? I'm going to visit my good friend Stuart in Hollywood. And he takes off for a couple of days to go and have what is sometimes fine and sometimes quite awkward visit with someone he doesn't actually know that well, right? The ex-husband of a friend. But Stuart has some great, wise observations, right? One of them is about like women who have these intense best friendships are often more intimate with their friends than they are with their husbands. And Elliot does not like hearing that. But there was a lot of truth in that. Claire feels so comfortable and intimate. And I don't mean sexually intimate, but like open-heartedly, like what is more vulnerable than staring at the final days on this planet, the last of what you'll ever be here? What is more open-hearted than that? And so, of course, Claire is turning towards her best friends, the women with whom she's been intimate. And there we have Elliot sitting with Stuart, who's about to hit on a waitress. That's where Elliot is when he's realizing, like, I am not a person who she feels as intimate with, and what that feels like to him is awful. But his realization of that throughout the book is glorious. That was really good.
Yeah, it's tough to have to accept that, like, your own self-actualization is happening, not just coincident because of the death of your spouse, that's sort of what he goes through.
Well, Stewart is also the one who I think when he greets Elliot is just like, you look changed. You look like a different human being lives in your body. Um, I love that observation because when you're taking care of someone who's dying, you do feel like you're like a guest inside of your body. You are just, you're sleeping on couches. You're buying enemas. You're blending food in the blender, right? You're turning, how can I make hamburger pudding, right? You're living inside of your body as a guest in this kind of limbo zone. And then when it's over, you do look back and you do seem like somebody else and wonder how you survived that. So I again, Stewart the guy, maybe I wouldn't hang out with him, but he had so much wisdom, I thought, in that brief jaunt that Elliot takes to Hollywood.
Well, I had a lot of fun creating the character of Stewart, largely because he is a TV writer and I've dabbled a little bit in that world. But it was fun to sort of invent a famous TV show of his and to populate this novel with the sort of like little bits and pieces out of that TV show. But then, having done that, I actually had to create Stewart too. And he was a character who I didn't know who he was going to be until I started writing him. But his way of being in the world, his ideas, his way of interacting with Elliot came really quickly, which is always such a pleasure when you're writing fiction. Anything that comes quickly feels good.
You have had the chance to work in Hollywood, and I have chatted with lots and lots of authors and writers, and many of them, even though they're very successful novelists, secretly wish they could work in Hollywood. So will you just tell us a little bit about what you've done and how glamorous or not glamorous it was, or who was the jerk in the writer's room, or if it was all copy editing? Tell us, like, demystify it a little bit for us, if you will.
Well, first of all, I have to preface this with, it was just a little bit. My husband, who is my second husband, and we've only been together for 10 years now, but he is a novelist and a screenwriter, and has been doing both for his entire career, pretty much. So he had a whole history of writing movies, working a little bit in TV, etc. when we got together. And it was because he thought that my first novel would make a good feature film that we even discussed writing together. And we took a stab at writing an adaptation of my first novel, had a great time. And we tend to watch a fair amount of TV, I confess. And so we were like, all right, we were watching this stuff all the time. Let's think of a show. Let's come up with something to write. And that started in 2017. And from then on, we have been developing. We worked in a writer's room. We got an assignment to write an adaptation from Apple TV. Nothing has ever gone, as they say, like been produced. Well, that's actually not even true. At the very beginning, my husband was helping out on a show that was produced, and we did have some involvement with that. But otherwise, it's funny because he says to people who ask him about being in the movie business, the first, I think, 8 or 10 years of it, he was working with his brother, and they wrote a ton of scripts and nothing got produced. So what he likes to say to people is, I wasn't in the movie business. I was in the development business. And that's an important distinction to make. So I would say I've been in the development business of TV sort of peripherally for about 7 years. And I'm very glad to have participated in this practice, this world. And who knows? Never say never. We may get back into it. We actually are hoping to option the movie rights to somewhere I know her, and to at least get to take the first stab at writing an adaptation together.
I would absolutely buy a ticket to that movie right now, as long as the ticket came with Kleenex and maybe like a half a box of sort of like chocolate toffee. I think I would need to comfort eat to get through there. Jhumpa Lahiri famously talked about not wanting to be involved in the making of the movie for the namesake. That there's plenty of writers who said a screenplay is just a different animal entirely. It's a film is not what I do. That the interiority, right? That writing inside of someone's head. What does that look like in a screenplay? They're looking out a window.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. What was very interesting for me is that I've always been a very scene-based writer, and has centered dialogue quite a lot in all of my work. And that translated great. That translated really well. And a lot of people don't want to touch it. Other people really do. In the end, the thing you have to always keep in sight is very few things get produced. There's a lot of effort, a lot of hope, a lot of development, but very few things actually produce because it costs so much.
Yeah. Well, we're used to that as writers. I've never done the math on a first draft versus a final draft. How much is the same? But it's not all there, right? It's not 100%. It's not. I believe it's probably under 60% that the changes, and maybe more so, that the drafts are not the same. If you were to compare what the first draft is and what the last draft is, we assume that to be true only of novel writing or something.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've ever seen sketches, right, that I was at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum not long ago, and looking at sketches and drawings, or the Rodin Museum, when you look at the practice drafts of the thinker, that all art forms have things that you've cast off and cast aside, and especially television and movies, not just scenes that you filmed and didn't use, but actually films that you write and that you cast and never get made, things that get tabled for any number of reasons. And it's very rarely, because the script wasn't good. It's much more often, well, so-and-so said they would do it, and then they had something else to do, and then someone else made a dinosaur movie, and so your dinosaur love story was less relevant now, or the reasons things get taken out of a novel at least make sense, right? The darlings that are killed. But sometimes those projects that die in Hollywood, you just heartbreak after heartbreak.
Yeah, it's the stakes are very high. The financial stakes are very high, and that exerts a lot of toll on.
Yeah. Okay, back to your novel briefly. Sometimes I ask this question and it doesn't go well, and that makes it sound scary, and it's not. I like to ask people what they wish they'd been asked. You know what I mean? So like that's not me asking you to do the work, but like, what did you want to talk about with this book? What were you hoping would be the conversation that people forget to ask you? Or did you really want to talk about Michelle's athleisure wear and we didn't get into it? But like, what is what is part of your novel that you feel like you wish people would ask about more, or topic even that you wish that would be discussed more about this one?
I think the question presupposes, this is going to sound bad, and I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Bring your bag. Bring it. I can handle it.
It presupposes that you want to talk about it. Oh,
Is this the
right?
worst part is this the worst part for you? Like the publicity part? Are you just like, ugh, are you like, do you not like to do this?
I'm honored that people want to talk to me about my work. I am a major, major introvert. And it's the writing part is that's where I live, the actual writing part. And then it's finished and it's time to bring it out into the world. And of course, I want to do everything I can. I'm extremely grateful to my publisher for whatever resources they want to put behind getting this book out to readers. Truly, truly grateful because not every book gets a publicist who's going to work hard on your behalf. Not every book gets a book tour. So I am truly, truly grateful, but it doesn't come naturally to me to talk about it. So I don't sort of think, oh, I'm looking forward to this aspect of the conversation or this question about it. I know that there's an argument for just answering the question that you have an answer for, even if it's not quite the question that you were asked. But I'm listening to the question. I'm taking very seriously exactly what you asked. And I'm saying, in some way, it's not like that. And I feel kind of bad. So I'm saying, like, you
No.
can't answer that question. But it's interesting, and it raises sort of new thoughts for me about what this process means and what it asks of writers and what it gives us, what it allows us to do. So I'm grateful to have been asked that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I really appreciate your candor. So when you first started going out on book tour, like go back to baby writer you, like like do you remember just like was there just terror? How did you feel going into your first book event or your like I don't know if you can remember like you've been very successful, but tell me about like what that was like just the first go arounds.
So my first book was a collection of stories that was published in 1994. Two of us were going to be doing a reading, and I wasn't nervous enough. I was not thoughtful enough about how to approach bringing my work into public. And the way that manifested itself is that I read an entire short story and it took 40 minutes. I didn't know until afterward, like, oh, no. There's a great author escort. This great guy, Bill Young in Chicago, he used to say, 20 minutes is good. 30 minutes is okay. 40 minutes is a hostage situation. So words still live by. I wasn't scared until I had to go on TV the first time. And then I was really scared.
What did you wear? Did they do your makeup weird?
They did my makeup. Well, that was the least of it. Honestly, just the kind of shaking, dry mouth stuff. I wasn't scared enough about how much fear I would feel. That's what I really mean. Like, it's probably a good thing that I wasn't, because then I would have felt more fear. But I'm at Good Morning America at ABC. I'm sitting with, Diane Sawyer and Charlene Gibson. I'm on a kind of a platform, and there are all these cameras. And oh my God, I cannot tell you how dry my mouth was. At one point in the broadcast, there's the cameras on me for a moment, and my mouth is so dry, and I have no idea where the cameras are. Anyway, I'm sitting there and I go, and the camera caught that, like they were on me when that happened. So you just don't know. I truly enjoy meeting my readers, and going to bookstores and having the opportunity to have, some curious people in the audience want to, hear a little bit about the writing of the book or why I'm a writer or any of that stuff. It's totally pleasurable and lovely. And, as I said before, a great, great gift from your publisher that you're out there going to bookstores.
Yeah. Ann Patchett, I think, talked about like the only thing worse than a book tour is not getting a book tour, but she remembered famously when early days, this would have been like patron saint of liars or run, like early days for her, but she remembered they would send her to a bookstore and no one would come, right? It's just you and the bookseller.
Every writer has had that experience. Mm-hmm. And that's actually another Billy Young thing. I mean, I'm sure more than one person has said this, but he would always say the only thing worse than a book tour is no book tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tiring too, traveling, a city a day. That they don't do that as much. People don't go on longer tours as much as they used to, as much as publishers used to book for us. In the old days, like a city a day for a couple of weeks, that's exhausting.
I did an event with Hanif Abdurraqib, and he said that his publisher would love to send him out more because every time they go out, you sell X number of books to Y number of people. But he just said, I can't get my writing done. Like that I'm proud of that book and I'm glad that it's out there. But how am I to write the next book that you've asked me to write if I'm always being sent hither and yon?
I mean, I think one of the hardest parts of the publication process is that if you haven't started your next book, you're really separate from yourself as a writer. You're separate from the process of writing. And I usually haven't. And in this case, I haven't. And that's sort of where being a writer lives is, the hours at your desk, the days to weeks at your desk.
Weeks to months.
Yes. Months to years. You've got so much time.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we always wind down with this or that questions that are just for fun. So I'll give you a few of those before we go, okay?
Sure.
You just pick one. Coffee or tea? Mountains or beach?
Wow, that's tough. Wow. I can't choose.
There's no point system, so you still get 100% if you don't choose. Dogs or cats? Are you an early bird or a night owl?
It's so funny. I remember a friend way, way long ago in the 80s. Somehow or other we were talking about, are you a morning person or are you a night person? And the only thing I could think to say was, I guess I'm just not a person. Because it's neither. It's truly neither. I don't work late at night, but I don't go to bed super early either. And I certainly don't get up super early, but I'll sleep super late. So how's that for equivocal?
That works for me. A New Haven question for you. If you were going to have lunch, would you prefer to go to Pepe's Pizza or Louis Lunch for a burger?
Louis Lunch and probably Pepe's.
Louis Lunch. We always called it Louis Lunch, so we pronounced it wrong. For people who haven't been there, it's like it really is a hamburger on a piece of bread. I couldn't believe they were taking those hamburgers to go in your book, which is commented on. They don't travel well, and it's not a place where you're getting like special sauce, lettuce, cheese. You're not getting a whole bunch of toppings. They claim to have invented the hamburger or welcomed the hamburger to America. I like that. A couple more. Joni Mitchell or Casablanca? That's too
strange.
That's a strange pairing.
Strange. Joni Mitchell.
Yeah. I
mean, if you were taking one to a desert island, you're taking Joni Mitchell. You're not taking a 2-hour movie.
It's true. Because you're not even going to have a VCR on that desert island, but Joni Mitchell transports easier. Or maybe you will. Maybe it's the kind of desert island with a VCR. Who can say the parameters
if you're allowed to bring Casablanca, it sure better be.
Absolutely.
Or would you on your hard drive?
Would you prefer to eat foie gras spring rolls or a cake frosted with Russian buttercream?
Ooh, tough. Very inside baseball from my novel. I'm going to go with the foie gras spring rolls. And I don't really like foie gras, but that buttercream, the Russian buttercream just sounded pretty.
I had never heard of that before, but it did.
Me neither, until I found it on Google.
On a similar vein then, at the end of a long day, would you prefer to go to be stretched at a stretching spa, or would you prefer to sit down with some butterscotch pudding?
Oh, pudding. Absolutely. Yeah.
and
by the way, I've made that.
Have you?
Really oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I didn't put any recipes, or not recipes, but I didn't put any dishes into the book. And we should maybe explain that Elliot is in a dinner club, and cooking plays a role in the book. And there's a significant scene featuring butterscotch pudding. And that is a specific butterscotch pudding, the Jelena recipe, Jelena in Venice. Highly recommend.
All right, I'm writing that down because I looked to the back just in case there were recipes listed.
And Death with Recipes.
I think Death with Recipes is a book I would read, and I do think death books should come with recipes. So excellent. If you're being badly introduced at an event, would you prefer to be mistaken for Ann Packer, British Olympic sprinter, or Kay Packer, an Australian businessman who founded the World Series of Cricket?
Totally the other Ann Packer.
The Ann Packer who was the sprinter. Yes. When I was asking my team for a bio, that was the bio they gave me. And
they did.
And at first I thought, you know what? How amazing that you're not just this successful novelist, but you had time to be a British sprinter. And I'm sad with that.
Yeah. There's a disambiguation situation on my Wikipedia page.
So for the author, a moment, you were here. Both. Oh, that was fantastic. Like last few here. Who's a writer whose work we should be reading? Who's an author you admire?
Yeah, the writer who's knocked my socks off in the best way in the last year is Susie Boyd. Have you read Loved and Missed?
No. Is it so good?
It's so good. Oh my God, it's so good. You got to read it.
I'm writing it down right now.
BOYT.
Yeah, no, I know the name.
Oh. And, fun fact, she is a great-grandchild of Sigmund Freud.
Oh, well, that would be fascinating. Just alone.
Freud.
Wow, I didn't know. Okay, I'm gonna go down a deep dive there. That's fantastic. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Mint chip.
Yeah, solid.
Yeah. What's yours?
Mint chocolate chip.
Okay. So that wasn't like you didn't like it.
No, people like to say, "Oh, blueberry corn goat cheese," and I'm like, bullshit. You like cookies and cream, and you're saying blueberry goat cheese to impress me, and I'm less impressed because now you're lying. But I don't say that. I just nod my. So no, I have had blueberry goat cheese, and I thought it was gross. I dabble.
I mean, mint chip. There are some categories with mint chip. I do not like a mint chip that has hard little chips. I like a mint chip. First of all, I like a very spearminty mint chip, and I like the chocolate to be more flaky.
Got it. Almost like a stracciatella, like the Italian flakiness of those chips.
You don't have to bite down with those molars to crack the chip.
Yeah.
The frozen chip.
Yeah. Nobody wants ice cream that comes with dental care. No, I agree. All right, last question for you. If I were to take a snapshot of you, really happy, doing something you love, what would I see?
Either, am I allowed to give you two?
Yes.
Lose my 100%? either
No, you
I'm
100% still.
so either I'm on my chaise in Maine, where we spend summers, my husband and I, reading, or I'm in that kitchen of that house baking.
I was going to ask you if you were, I mean, there were so many cooking references. I didn't want to put you on the spot because some people are like, no, I haven't baked a day in my life. But I assumed you had to have some baking background, that there's a scone recipe with wild Maine blueberries up your sleeves.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm a big baker. I love baking. It's not exactly relaxing. It's just very satisfying.
The phrase in a book that I read was pensive baking. That you could be a pensive baker, a thoughtful baker. I like baking because I tend not to be thinking about anything else because I've got to get the butter to look like they said it was supposed to look, and it's supposed to be pebbly, or I got to get this done quickly because we don't want it to warm up. And I also just like to eat the food I make.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very result oriented with baking. I mean, I enjoy the process, but it's like, here's my pie and it's tasty. That's the fun.
I love that. The first time I baked a pie, my sister's cat died, and so I thought those two were related for a very long time. And I went at least a decade without baking a pie, but I have baked many pies since, and to my knowledge, no cats were harmed in the process, except for the first one.
I'm sure they weren't. Now, what's your favorite pie bake? And then I was asking you questions.
What's my favorite pie to bake? I'm a blueberry peach girl. Like, I'm a summer pie person, but only if you successfully thicken. You know how if you only do peach, the peach, it can get kind of tapioca-y. So you got to have the peach and the blueberry together. I'm a summer pie girl. Although my daughter likes chocolate pie, but I've got less use for that. How about you? Do you have a favorite pie? It's a chocolate chess pie. So like that just pie. So you serve it with cream on the side, but it is really just chocolate and the pressed pastry, the crust.
Honestly, a strawberry galette is my favorite.
Oh, look at you throwing down the galette. That's supposed to be an easier version of the pie, right? I don't have to par-bake it, or I don't have to, like, that I can just sort of fold it over. But I never find it to...
Okay. You don't find it relaxing? I also don't love that much filling and that much crust. I prefer sort of a one-to-one filling and crust relationship, which that's what the galette's going to give you.
All right, I will rethink the galette. I appreciate that. That's good to know. Oh my! I could talk Pie and Death with you all day long, but apparently we're not allowed to do that. Pie and Death is another one. I would absolutely read that book or watch that movie. So just, for the next time you're feeling screenwriting.
I'm looking for inspiration. I'll go to that.
Yeah. It's always, I don't know, in between projects, I fear I will never write again. Right? You feel that I'm all written out of that topic, and again, it's like another Ann Patchett thing, but the butterfly it floats around, and just you'll get that day when the wings will catch the light, and you don't know if that's going to be the book or not. It might be an itch you're going to scratch for a moment, or it might be an idea you're going to live with for 3 years. You never know which it's going to be. So I wish you many butterflies and a lot of light.
Well, thank you so much, and saying back at you, and thank you for this. This was such fun.
Well, now that I know how much you didn't want to be here, it's even doubly so. No, I'm kidding.
No, I'm already regretting having.
No. I won't even say it that way. Like now that I know how much the writing means to you and how this part is more difficult, I'm triply grateful that you made the time, folks. Ann Packer's book is Some Bright Nowhere, but that's not the only one. I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I was a child and I found Dancing Shoes by Noel Streatfeild, and I assumed that was the only book that Noel Streatfeild had ever written, and then there were like 10 others. You are going to go and find Ann Packer's book on the shelf, and then you're just going to see the next one and the next one. If you have somehow managed to live to this moment and not have read one of Ann's books, you're in for a treat. I cannot think of one that I wouldn't recommend. So, Ann, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We're grateful. And to everyone listening, we're wishing you love and light wherever the day takes you. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and we'll see you again soon on this wild and precious journey.